Joseph Donald Ture Jr. was born into a fractured world. His parents divorced when he was 10, and he was primarily raised in an orphanage. This unstable foundation set the course for a transient life. My ma, she was just moving around here and there, so she wasn't a fit mother to live with, they said. Before dawn on December 15th, 1978, 36-year-old Alice Wohlenhaus was at home with her 4 children. A figure entered their rural home. Alice was shot first. The intruder then went upstairs. Her children, 16-year-old Susan, 13-year-old Wayne, and 12-year-old Patty, were tied up and shot in their beds. 11-year-old Billy survived by playing dead under his covers after 2 shotgun blasts narrowly missed him. Just 4 days after the murders, Ture was arrested at a pizzeria near the Clearwater Travel Plaza for driving a stolen car. He had been harassing waitresses there. Police found a metal rod matching a bruise on Alice Wohlenhaus and a toy car that young Billy Wohlenhaus would later say looked just like one of his. This evidence was given to deputies, and Ture was released. On May 8, 1979, 18-year-old Marlys Wohlenhaus returned home from school. Joseph Ture had broken in and was waiting. Wohlenhaus was discovered by her mother, covered in blood with her head bashed in. She had several star-shaped cuts on her scalp. In October 1980, a predator was hunting in South Minneapolis. Using a knife and a station wagon, he abducted young women from the street. He threatened them with a knife, forced them into his car, and drove to remote areas to assault them. The victims included a 13-year-old girl and an 18-year-old woman. On October 27, 1980, Ture attempted to abduct a 20-year-old woman. In a desperate act of self-defense, she fought back with the only weapon she had. She burned his face with a lit cigarette. He fled, but her courage provided a critical, identifiable clue for investigators. On September 26, 1980, 19-year-old Diane Edwards finished her waitressing shift. Walking home alone, she was targeted. 4 teenage girls witnessed. The driver forced the woman into his car through the driver's door. They heard her scream. The vehicle became a signature. Victims of the Lake Street assaults and witnesses to Diane Edwards' abduction all described the same thing: an older, rusted, dark-colored station wagon. This description matched Ture's own vehicle, a 1974 Ford Galaxy. It was a tangible link between a series of seemingly disconnected crimes. On October 30, 1980, Minneapolis police arrested Joseph Ture Jr. for the kidnappings of the 13-year-old girl and 18-year-old woman. While in custody, police from multiple jurisdictions began to connect the dots. The description of the assailant, his car, and his methods were pointing toward a single, prolific offender. A search of Ture's car and garage revealed his chilling methodology. Notebooks and address books listing the names, addresses, phone numbers, and even license plates of hundreds of women. He'd have a description of what she wore looks like. He had over 100, close to 200 waitresses, where they worked, what they wore, what they drove. In April 1981, Ture stood trial for the kidnappings and rapes. He was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 30 years in prison. He was now a convicted violent felon, but the murders of Alice Wohlenhaus, Marlys Wohlenhaus, and Diane Edwards remained officially unsolved. While awaiting trial for Diane Edwards' murder in late 1981, Ture had a fellow inmate write a detailed confession. He signed it, hoping for a transfer to a mental hospital. I drove to the Wohlenhaus home. We argued. I hit her with a hatchet. For years, this confession was ignored. Ture had been cleared for the Wohlenhaus murder because he had an alibi. Work records showed he was at the St. Paul Ford plant. It was a catastrophic error. A cold case review in the 1990s discovered the truth. Investigators had mistakenly checked the work schedule of his father, Joseph Ture Sr. Ture was not working that day. In December 1981, based on eyewitness identification and his own confession, Ture was convicted of the first-degree murder of Diane Edwards and sentenced to life in prison. I was just playing games with authorities. Ture began serving his life sentence. Years passed. In the early 1990s, BCA Special Agent Everett Doolittle reopened the frozen Wohlenhaus case file. Re-examining the evidence, he found the 1981 jailhouse confession, and then he found the fatal flaw in the alibi. In 1996, after being indicted for Wohlenhaus's murder, Ture agreed to a television interview. On 48 Hours, he professed his innocence. The broadcast triggered an avalanche. Dozens of young women contacted the program, claiming to recognize Ture as the man who had assaulted them in the 1970s. In 1998, nearly 2 decades after her death, Joseph Ture stood trial for the murder of Marlys Wohlenhaus. The evidence included his detailed confession and the testimony of the inmate who wrote it. He was convicted and received a second life sentence. In 2000, the final case was brought. Ture stood trial for the 1978 murders of the Huling family. The sole survivor, Billy Huling, now a grown man, took the stand. He testified about the night he played dead. He identified the toy car found in Ture's possession. The written confession Ture had also made about this crime was entered into evidence. The jury found him guilty on 4 counts of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to 4 additional life sentences, bringing his total to 6. I spent hours and hours and hours with him. He is a very mixed-up character, and he did probably more than what we got him for. Joseph Ture Jr. remains imprisoned at Stillwater, serving 6 consecutive life sentences. But for investigators, the ledger may not be closed. He is a suspect in other unsolved crimes, including the 1979 disappearance of 20-year-old Joan Bierschbach. His story endures as a grim lesson in investigative persistence and the long, imperfect road to justice. I did a lot of bad things, but I never hurt a body.